Hello and welcome to Whining About Books, where I review a good book with a stiff drink in my hand. Tonight I will be continuing the review of The Jungle Book, this time diving into the appropriately named The Second Jungle Book. I don't want to waste any more time because I'm excited to give my thoughts on this, so let's get into it. Grab your book if you have it, and grab your drink because I know you got it, and let's whine about books. The Jungle Book is a collection of short stories written by Rudyard Kipling. He was born in December of 1865 in Bombay, which is now Mumbai, then taken to England along with his sister in the year 1871. After suffering abuse from the hands of his foster family, he graduated from college and returned to India in 1882. During this time, he wrote poems and stories and drew sketches that gained him near instant notoriety in the literary world. The Jungle Book and its sequel were published in 1894 and 95, and he has many honors to his name, including a Nobel Prize in Literature, and he turned down a knighthood twice. Sadly, because of his involvement and strong opinions in the political world, many lost interest in his writings. This did not stop him from enjoying his love of poetry and storytelling. My drink of the evening is something I came up with on my own. I wanted to really capture the wonder and whimsy of Kipling's stories. He does such a great job describing the jungle and making you believe that you have actually walked the same path as Mowgli and the Jungle People. I wanted to relive the feelings and emotions that I experienced while reading, so I thought, what is a better choice than a blended drink? Here I have what I like to call the jungle's fruit basket. Into a blender, I toss banana, orange juice, mango lassi, coconut, guava, mango, and a drizzle of honey. To that, I added a shot and a half, maybe two, of that wonderful Bombay gin and blended until combined. I'm a girl who loves munching on the chunks of fruit, so I diced up some mango and placed it in the bottom of my glass before adding my blended cocktail. It's time to give it a drink. Let's see. Oh, that is good. That's actually really good. Stuck my little old foot in that. Okay. So I kind of want to do things a little differently this time around. For the first Jungle Book, I began with the Tales of Mowgli and then went into two additional short stories that were included in the first book. This time around, I will begin my opinion and assessment of one additional story included in the second Jungle Book and end with my review of the Tales of Mowgli. To begin, I will talk about the miracle of Puran Bhagat. I want to start by saying that this story is my absolute favorite from the second Jungle Book. As the story begins, we are introduced to a man named Puran Das. Puran Das was the prime minister of one of the semi-independent native states in the northwestern part of India. He was a Brahmin and a part of the highest social caste. We are quickly swept into the knowledge of not only his accolades and accomplishments, but also the fine line he has to walk while navigating the English world that is Britain and that of his homeland, India. It's quoted, he must stand well with the English and imitate all the English believe to be good. At the same time, a native official must keep his own master's favor. This was a difficult game, but the quiet, closed-mouthed young Brahmin played it coolly. The focus of this story, though, is not about how much the Brahmin gained, but how much he was willing and wanting to give up in order to live a life that he considered to be complete and fulfilled. I want to be clear and let you guys know that this man is no lightweight when it comes to the worldly heights that he has achieved. But he would let these things go as a man drops the cloak he needs no longer. He was no longer a Brahmin. He was no longer a part of the caste. He walked out of the city gates with the clothes on his back, save his feet, which remained bare, an antelope skin, a brass-handled crutch, and a brown begging bowl. Puran Das was now a Sunyashi, a houseless wandering mendicant, depending on his neighbors for his daily bread. And wander did he. It was during this early time of wandering that our main character began calling himself Puran Bhagat. His journeying took him northward until he remembered the origins of his mother's birth, and his trek took him along the Himalayan Tibet road, crossing the highest pass until he came out of a line of snow peaks where he was met with a deserted shrine of Kali. This shrine, where the humble Puran Bhagat, it became his home, and he swept the stone floor, made a fireplace out of mud, spread his antelope skin on a fresh bed of pine needles, and then sat down to rest. What a journey this man has made. And as he looked down on the hillside, there lay a little village of stone houses surrounded by terraced fields and grazing cows. It took no time for the villagers to take notice of the smoke coming from the shrine, and before long a villager made his way up to where Puran Bhagat rested. With no words passing between the two, the villager took up the Bhagat's begging bowl and returned to the village with the message, We have at last a holy man. Never have I seen such a man. He is of the plains, but pale colored, a Brahmin of the Brahmins. The villagers wasted no time in caring for the Brahmin by providing the best food and making sure that he had all he needed. For this reason, and with the villagers' blessing, Purun Bhagat made the shrine his home. As time passed and the seasons changed, the Brahmin became fond of more than the villagers. The people of the wild started visiting him. It started with the langurs, which are monkeys. They came and sat by the warmth of the fire, and they shared in the food the villagers brought. Next, it was the barasingh, which is a type of deer that came nuzzling on his shoulders. Then it was the musk deer, a cute little with cute little vampire teeth. And last to make his appearance and introduction was Sona, the Himalayan black bear. Sona was the true teddy bear that we all wanted as children. He would follow Purun Bhagat on his walks and would greet him early in the morning. At this point, Purun Bhagat was seen as a miracle worker, being able to draw in the wildlife with his stillness and patience. Oh, this story had me wrapped up. Now, the way I see it, Purun Bhagat, the miracle worker that he is, couldn't perform his greatest miracle without the help of his jungle friends that he met at the Shrine of Kali. It was the time of the summer rains, and boy, was it pouring down. In the dark of the night, the Brahmin was woken by a langur pulling on his blanket. Now, this was an ordinary occurrence, and thinking that the monkey wanted warmth or food, the Brahmin did the best he could to oblige. It wasn't until the barasingh came crashing through the shrine that Purun Bhagat truly awoke. The deer pushed him out of the shrine, and the Brahmin heard a crack of two slabs pulling away from each other. And there was going to be a landslide. So with a lit torch and the guidance of the barasingh and other animals, Purun made his way down to the village. Now, I want you all to know that this man is old as dirt. He cannot move quickly by any means. He is holding on to the side of the deer, clutching the torch, and trying to maneuver with his crutch under his arm. He makes it down to the village and is able to wake everyone in time to climb up the safe side of the mountain. This act left the Brahmin with failing strength. While the villagers watched as their homes were buried under mud, trees, and rocks, the Brahmin collapsed to the ground. His last words were of him begging to the barasingh to stay with him until he goes. And when the commotion and shock of the landslide passed, the villagers came upon their Brahmin dead, sitting with his back against a tree trunk, his legs crossed, and his crutch under his arm. The parting words of the village priest were, "Behold, a miracle after miracle, for in this very attitude the Sunyashi is buried. Therefore he is now where he is now, we will build a temple to the holy man." And they named the hill that he died on Bhagat's Hill, and they built it up with stone and earth. What a wonderful story. Now, this story was so profound to me because the Brahmin was not looking for any accolades. He had achieved all he could ever achieve in his previous life. He threw it all away and labeled it as unimportant. Yet his most important work, the most crucial and critical part of his life, was sitting on that mountainside with little to no possessions, watching the peaceful life of the villagers and sharing what he had, food, happiness, and contentment with the animals of the jungle. And when the time came for him to pay back the villagers for all that they had done for him, he did so with his dying breath. It is truly a remarkable story. It's compelling and left me thinking will probably be a story that I continually refer back to over the course of my life. That story was full of wisdom and knowledge and just the putting off of worldly desires and worldly achievements to take on humility and serve others while also being served at basically your lowliest point where you have absolutely nothing. It's profound, and it's amazing that this is, a kid's story, which, for me, it's like, I'm an adult and I've and I've learned from this. Imagine if I would have read this as a child. But would I have grasped it the same? Probably not. So better yet that I read it now. Now on to the Tales of Mowgli. Most of the second Jungle Book deals with Mowgli and his time in the jungle. If you include the appendix, which I do, then the second Jungle Book includes 6 stories about Mowgli, while the first Jungle Book only has 3. Since there's a lot to cover, I will do my best to gloss over my favorite parts and then take most of my focus on the last two stories, which are titled The Spring Running and In the Ruck. Let's get into it. From the first story in the Jungle Book, How Fear Came is what it's titled. We are taken back to when there was a significant drought. Shere Khan is still alive, and throughout the jungle we have a water truce. No one is to kill while at the watering hole, for that is where the jungle people are most vulnerable. Because there is a drought, or at the very least a delay in the rainy season, and also a heat wave, which means that food has become scarce. Yet scarcity escapes Shere Khan because he has no problem feeding on what most of the hunting people of the jungle consider to be forbidden, which is human flesh. He comes to the water hole and taints the small pool of liquid with the blood of his fresh kill. From there, Hathi the elephant, master of the jungle, tells the story of how this came to be. This is a creation story, the creation of the jungle itself. All the animals lived in harmony, one never eating the other, and the tiger was appointed to be the judge over disputes of the animals. This was before he was given his stripes. One night, two bucks came to the tiger so that he could settle a grazing dispute between the two. The two bucks began to fight, and one pierced the other with his horns. The smell of the blood awakened something within the tiger, and he pounced on the pierced buck, breaking his neck and killing him. This made the jungle people afraid of the tiger, obviously. He had lost their reverence and respect. He had upset the order of the jungle. So Ta, the originator of the jungle and ancestor of Hathi, had told the tiger that he had brought death and shame into the jungle. Because of this, Ta had to enact the true law and warn the tiger that he shall soon know fear. It is here that the tiger promises to kill fear by going to this thing and breaking his neck. This is when we are introduced to man. The tiger comes to fear in the mouth of the cave and finds fear all alone, hairless, and with his hand outstretched to the tiger. And when the tiger laid eyes upon him, he was afraid and ran away, his pride gone from him. Yet Ta promised the tiger that there will be one night where the jungle shall be as it was before. And if the tiger stumbles upon the hairless one again, that is fear, that is a human, then to show him mercy. When that one night finally approached, the tiger went to the cave where the hairless one dwelled. The tiger, the judge of all things, broke his back and killed Fear, but he did not know that Fear was not alone. From the shadows of the cave came another hairless one, and when he saw the scene before him, the tiger standing over his dead companion, and because of the tiger's actions, death was known to the humans. It wasn't long before the hairless one came seeking his revenge and threw a spear into the tiger's side, killing him. Now, there is much more to this story, but my goal was to cover the gist. I have always enjoyed a good origin story, and I love that the jungle people have their own creation story where most everyone was living in relative harmony, and then, of course, the fall of said creation. It was not only enjoyable to read, but it gave a reason for the way the jungle worked. It showed why the jungle law is so important and what happens when people go against it. There is chaos and fear, shame and deceit. But when the jungle people live by the law and respect each creature and living thing, then there is harmony and genuine happiness. It was a wonderful perspective to get an inside look to. Now, I will sort of skim forward a bit and let you all know that this was not the end of Mowgli's adventures. As a matter of fact, Kipling states that there are too many adventures that Mowgli lived and experienced to ever be able to write down and discuss. But he does give us a few stories along the way. There was a letting in of the jungle, which is when the jungle people pushed out the villagers that kicked Mowgli out when he was a boy in the first Jungle Book. They were hunting him, looking to kill Mowgli, and the jungle people, with the leadership of Mowgli, weren't going to let that happen. Then we get to meet an old cobra who is guarding a magnificent treasure. One of the treasure pieces, the King's Ankus, which is also the title of the story, is a tool used to corral and control elephants, and it is cursed and brings death upon those who hoard it. That Ankus leads to the death of 6 people in one night, mainly from their own greed, and Mowgli sees that this thing should never have left that forbidden treasure. So he returns it and tells the old dying fangless cobra to find its successor who will guard the treasure and kill anyone who would dare try to take it. And last, we are told about a large fight between the wolf pack and some dholes. Dholes are reckless wild dogs that will kill just about anything in their path. And those dholes find themselves encroaching on the wolf pack territory, and Mowgli is about his business and hatches a plan to fend off the dholes. He has proven successful, but not without many casualties and injuries, with Akela being one of those who did not live through the fight. And it was actually a very sad death, but one that Akela did with the utmost honor. So now that brings us to the saddest part of the Mowgli tales, at least for me, and that is titled The Spring Running. And at this point, Mowgli is about 17 years old, and he has become master of the jungle. He is respected and revered by the jungle people. He has grown into quite the young man, and he has put into his mind that he will live out the rest of the days in the jungle. Then comes the spring running. This is a time when most of the animals go away, including his wolf brothers, and they find a mate. Of course, Kipling doesn't phrase that in this way, but that is basically what it is. It is the time of new song. Babies are being born. His companions are spending their time booed up with their mates, and Mowgli takes his time to be alone and run through the jungle. Typically, this time of the year never really bothered him, but this year was different. Something comes over him this time. I would describe it as a little existential and depression-y, but our boy Mowgli feels as if he is being poisoned and the jungle is trying to spit him out. He is overcome and overwhelmed by these feelings. He takes his frustrations out on those around him and on those that he loves. He is basically throwing a tantrum because he is unsure of what is going on inside of him and has this inclination that the place and people he calls home no longer care about him. Eventually, he is told by Baloo, who is now old as dirt and nearly blind, and Bagheera, who has lost more than a step but is still very capable, that it is time for him to return to the man village. That the jungle was not spitting him out, but that it was no longer able to be all that he needed. It was such a bittersweet moment. Kaa, who had become a sort of keeper of Mowgli the way Baloo and Bagheera had been keeping him, backed these claims, and they all reminded him that there was always going to be a time when he needed to return to the man village. And so, after his spring running of 40 miles, might I add, Mowgli happens upon a new man village where he runs into his old adopted mother, Meswa. Now, it wasn't easy to sort of diagnose what was going on with him, but that didn't make the revelation any less profound. As this telling went on, it was easy to take on Mowgli's sadness. The goodbye between him and the jungle people and the jungle itself was touching. I wasn't ready, and I don't know that I will ever be completely okay with this. I see myself sitting at my kids' bedside, reading them these wonderful tales, and still being torn up about this much needed and necessary decision. It was one of those things that I knew needed to happen, but I was also trying to come up with a solution that wouldn't allow him to leave the only life he knew behind. It was sad. I didn't cry, but I was close. But that is where In the Ruck came in. Although this short story was the first written of the Mowgli stories, it fits perfectly for the ending of what we know of his life. Now, I won't get into much detail with this story, but I feel like I should leave you guys with the completion of the Mowgli tales. This will be more of a summary than I regularly do. So we are introduced to Gisborne, who is kind of a park ranger, and Gisborne was notified that a man who was attacked by a tiger in the part of the forest that he was assigned to govern. Gisborne's next steps were to find the tiger and kill him. Out of the woods comes Mowgli, now a man, and directs Gisborne to where the tiger is sleeping. Gisborne kills the tiger and has more questions than answers when it comes to this man of the forest. Over time, Gisborne gets to know Mowgli, and they sort of work together to keep the forest in order. Gisborne gets in his mind that Mowgli would be perfect for the Forest Service job, but he has so many questions that Mowgli is patient to answer. And I say patient because he's not keeping the answers from Gisborne. He just feels that Gisborne may begin to fully understand Mowgli and his control over the jungle by way of observation and practice. Eventually, Mowgli is taken by the daughter of Gisborne's servant, and he introduces her to Gray Brother and the other wolves. Now, this made me happy because it shows the undying loyalty of his pack. Anyway, Mowgli agrees to take a job with the Forest Service as long as he gets to work in the same woods as Gisborne. They are partners and have formed a friendship, and that is it was adorable, actually. He actually has a human friend. Now, Mowgli marries a servant's daughter, and they have a little son, and they live in the woods with the pack. So in the end, what I was hoping for Mowgli actually happened. He was able to live among the jungle and be accepted into human society to a certain degree. The boy who was not fully wolf and not completely man lived a life more fulfilled than just about any other human on earth. And yes, I know that this is a fictional story, but I am a happy ending gal. I thrive off an ending that can wrap itself in a neat little comfortable bow. And that is the magic of children's stories. I know it is not reality, but that is where the joy lies sometimes. And I'm never going to be over that. I'm always going to want a happy ending. Now, this wraps up my review of the second Jungle Book. Mr. Kipling, I commend you. There was not a story that I did not enjoy and not a tale I did not glean from. If you have never read these stories, I suggest that you tap into your childhood wonder and curiosity and pick up a copy. I will say that I enjoyed the second Jungle Book much more than I did the first, but that does not mean the first didn't hold a special place in my little heart. As I said earlier, I can't wait for the day that I get to share the same joy, excitement, and wonder with my own kids by reading these stories with them. Mr. Kipling, your short stories have landed you a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm sure this will not be our last meeting. So join me next time, guys, as I review Mr. Atom by Pat Frank. See you next time so we can whine about books. Now, Thorn, if it was acceptable for you to have just a smidge of gin, you'd love this. You'd love it, pup. Come here. Are you my own little gray brother? Black brother? Ugh, gross. My own little wolf pack? Yeah. Yeah, you are. That's a good boy. Yeah.